Alrighty, guys. Good evening. Hi. Hope you guys are wonderful evening so far, guys. Tonight we're going to be doing more of, well, not Marvel Rivals. We will be doing Marvel Rivals a bit later here. However, we will be doing, taking a look at Starship 7, which launched today. Skipping through the video. Bits and pieces here. But well worth covering, mainly because stepping stones in human evolution, I think, are well worth covering, even though I normally play Rivals. It's actually kind of weird how few people actually cover the stuff, so, yeah. Alrighty. Well. Let's see, guys. Seven launch. Twitter. It's all spoilers. Fucking video. Here. Edited. There we go. All right.
As the
along the way.
oh yeah,
Along the way.
oh yeah, every one of those tests informed the upgrades that are debuting on today's flight test, and you know we've all been watching
Going through their
Starship launch at Starbase. You can see the rocket behind us.
Spoilers.
Mind-blowing. This is quite the view, Dan.
Okay.
No better seat in the house, no better thing to talk about a rocket as you watch it launch. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Starbase for another Starship launch. I'm Dan Hewitt from SpaceX Communications. We are at T-minus under 33 minutes and counting. Our T0 time coming a little after the bottom of the hour. Now, Starship program has brought us nonstop excitement back in 2024. This year shaping up to be even bigger.
Absolutely. We're looking at even more launches of Starship this year with tons of exciting firsts starting today. Flight 7 has a lot in store, from Starship's next generation upper stage design on its first flight today to deploying the first simulated Starlink satellites and the second booster catch attempt. We're kicking off 2025 in style here in the Lone Star State. So hold on to your butts, because it's going to be a wild year.
And it's all ramping up as we chase after that full reusability for the world's biggest rocket. And we're going to be with you today every step of the way. Also joining us, though, amid a very excited crowd growing over there in Hawthorne, is Jesse Anderson. Jesse, how's everything going in LA?
Hey, Dan and Kate, everything is all good here on the factory floor. We're just outside of Mission Control, and we're T-minus 31 minutes away, but we already have a really big crowd here building. There you go. Starting to build up here. Every flight of Starship has made huge progress, and today is another exciting one. We're joined by Starship, Raptor, and Starlink teams here with me today, and everyone is getting super excited for this flight test. So with that in mind, I expect it to get very loud in here soon. But for now, I'm going to hand it back over to you guys at Starbase for a quick look back at the flights that brought us here today.
Hey, thanks, Jesse. Now, the more we fly safely, the faster we learn, the sooner we realize full and rapid reuse. The previous 6 flight tests proved we're on the right track. Each one of those tests provides a ton of invaluable data and, of course, some pretty great views along the way.
Oh, yeah. Every one of those tests informed the upgrades that are debuting on today's flight test. And you know, we've all been watching this, following through the incredible testing campaign for every flight. And man, I can't wait for today, as well as everything else we've got planned this year.
Just a recap of what happened just before this flight test. Our most recent one was back in November 19th. That was Flight 6. It lifted off at 4 p.m. Central from Starbase, Texas, just a couple miles over our shoulders.
It was a gorgeous sunset ascent. Let's take a look.
Attention all flight crew members, flight is go for launch.
It's been just over a month since Flight 5. The goal is to get that turnaround time down to hours.
And my contact case dried up. Shit.
We have liftoff.
Kind of sad that they didn't even try to, like, they don't even try to salvage the top half.
30 seconds, no catch decision.
Booster offshore diversion.
Tune in and watch the ship fly around planet Earth.
Relight demo startup. And shutdown.
Starship is at 100 kilometers altitude. Flaps now have control of the vehicle. Starship has started the subsonic belly flop.
They're paid. Every time they cheer, they get more money, guys. They get a boost. Fucking recap video.
Starship has landed.
All right, now today's flight test is going to look pretty similar profile-wise to that last one, and honestly, the last couple.
Where's the dubstep remix?
Everything starts off, as always, with liftoff. The Super Heavy igniting those 33 Raptor engines. Super Heavy going to power us through that initial ascent, get Starship on its way to space
now?
Before we get
oh my god, they're dressing this up even more, guys.
Exactly. The ship will then ignite engines while it's still attached to the booster. That will allow us to separate the two stages. That booster will leave a few engines on for that flip and return back here to Starbase for a catch at the launch tower.
And while booster catch is blowing our minds, ship keeps going all the way to space, gets into its suborbital trajectory. Got a couple on orbit orbit things. We're going to deploy our first test satellites, also going to relight a Raptor engine while in space. That all sets us up then for re-entry.
As we have seen on the previous flights, courtesy of Starlink, that re-entry period gives us such gorgeous views. It's like, you know, just a rainbow flow of colors as the ship re-enters the Earth's atmosphere. The ship will relight its engines, perform a flip maneuver for a soft water landing in our targeted location in the Indian Ocean. And that will once again be daylight given our later launch window. So today's flight test will be launching the next generation of Starship. It'll attempt the first payload deployment test, fly multiple re-entry experiments geared toward ship catch and reuse, and of course, the launch and return of the Super Heavy booster back to the launch site right there behind us.
Yeah, that's going to be amazing, but Chip, kind of the star of the show for a lot of stuff today. A huge block of upgrades to Starship's upper
Once again, we're going to be skipping around in the video. So
more capability. We'll start off up top.
I actually added
Those
more to the beginning of the video
got
now.
a redesign. They shrunk in size. We shifted them towards the top of the vehicle, away from the heat shield. That's going to make it significantly less.
So this is
exposed to
Starship
heat.
V2, even though it's the
And
seventh
Starship
one.
itself, we
This is
made
like
it
their
about
second
2
generation, I
meters
guess you could
taller.
call it.
So
where
we
they have an
stretched it up to
improved
about
booster.
52 meters. That allowed us to add 25% more propellant volume, along with a bunch of propulsion upgrades like vacuum jacketing of those feed lines to the engines, an entirely new feed line system for the Raptor vacuum engines, an improved avionics module for propulsion, all that adding performance and the ability to fly longer missions.
And just like on Flight 6, tiles have been purposely removed to stress test vulnerable areas. This time we're doing it across the entire vehicle, including in critical areas, as we use this flight to push the boundaries of Starship's capabilities. And for re-entry experiments, multiple metallic tiles are being tested, as you can see there on your screen, including some that have a version with
They have
active
more
cooling.
on-screen stuff.
Then the vehicle's avionics, its
Visualization.
brains got a
It's actually one of my
complete
critiques I had of the
redesign.
first
Some of the
launch,
new
which was
things
just kind of a
we've
shit
got
show.
for these upgraded
They're actually
Starlink
turning this
terminals
into
that
like
combine
a
Starlink,
well, they have been
global
turning it into a
RF
media event.
communications into a single unit. And then on the sides of the vehicle, we have these catch fittings. They're non-structural, but we're going to be able to see how they perform.
Ridiculous that those things can actually
during
hold
the
up the
entry.
Starship,
We also smoothed
which is
part of that
insane because
tile
they're so
line,
tiny.
to address some hot spots.
Starship's like 300 tons or something like that.
Now the ship and the booster, they weren't the only thing to get some upgrades. On the ground side, several radar sensors will be tested on the tower catch arms as we experiment with additional ways to measure distance between the
Need
arms
someone to add
and
on-screen-
the vehicle while we
on-screen,
prepare for
UE
ship
stuff?
catch. Now this is just a handful of the many upgrades included on this flight that make this the most capable Starship that we've flown so far.
And then something really cool has me super excited. We're going to be deploying 10 Starlink simulators that are similar in size to our next generation Starlink satellites. With pretty unparalleled payload capacity and full reusability, Starship's going to be able to deploy our more advanced V3
They're simulating
Starlink
deployment now.
satellites, which is going
Good
to
for
help
them.
us continue to revolutionize global
Kind of a shame when it
connectivity.
goes up and they don't really do
Each
anything
of
with
those
it, right?
Starlink V3 launches on Starship is going to add about 60 terabits per second of capacity to the Starlink network. And that alone is that's more than 20 times the capacity we're getting with every V2 mini flight on a Falcon 9 right now. That just helps further Starlink's impact in the coming years as we expand access to high-speed internet all around the world and eventually beyond. And those Starlink simulators are going to be on the same suborbital trajectory as Starship, and they're expected to demise upon entry. Starship itself, its trajectory looks very similar to all of our last several flights, suborbital, splashdown targeted into the Indian Ocean, a couple hundred miles off the western coast of
Those look like
Australia.
GPUs.
And then the other on-orbit thing we're doing
Very weird.
is going to be relighting a single Raptor engine while in space. We knocked that out last time. V2 ship, new propellant system. Let's do it again on this one.
Ship's going to be busy. Now, of course, we can't forget to
Good evening,
add
Wolf.
that today's
What's up? We're
Super
taking a
Heavy
look at
booster
Starship launch.
is
We're gonna
reflying flight-proven hardware for the first
bounce around in the
time.
video.
A Raptor engine that
But so
flew
far
on
it's
the
keeping me
booster that
entertained,
was caught
so-
during Starship's 5th flight test. You can see it there on your screen. This flight-proven engine, we've got Raptor 314 there, hence why there's a piece of pie on this nozzle. Maybe we can get that image rotated so you can see it a little bit better. Yep, there we go. If you didn't already know, we like our jokes around here. So that's what we have planned for today's flight test, and so far everything is
I don't
on
get it.
track as we continue to count down. We're now within
314 is supposed to look
23
like a
minutes
piece of
launch.
pie, or
We're
is it the
22
triangle
minutes
above it?
52
Relax.
seconds.
No.
Everything continues to look
good.
good. Still a little breezy, but that's okay for us.
Yeah, we set up our desk in a wind tunnel today. It's probably windier here than it is anywhere else, but weather's cooperating, really clear skies, no rain today, still well within our limits for booster launch or catch. Not tracking any issues on vehicle as we continue to count down. We're still loading prop on board. Our range team also reporting that the range looks like it will be clear at our current T0. So that's super important. We're going to keep an eye on that all the way up to the end.
As for what we've already done with the vehicle leading up to today, we stacked the vehicle over the weekend. We lifted the ship on top of the super heavy booster. Hours ago, we cleared the site of all personnel, and of course, our flight controllers came on console, some of them sitting in the building behind Dan and I. And as Dan mentioned, the range team was deployed. They are standing by in the Gulf to make sure that the booster has a clear to return back to here at the launch tower, but also they are located in the Indian Ocean, standing by to make sure that the targeted landing zone for the ship is also clear as well.
And then we knock out a whole bunch of things in the hours before
They do have a
launch.
heat bar
We
on
do
it,
an
a heat map. I
alignment
don't think
on
their
all
old
the
videos
guidance,
used to have a heat
navigation,
map.
Control.
I don't know when they ended
Pressure
this.
checkouts, make sure we're ready for prop load, check the booster, quick disconnect.
It's actually kind of ridiculous how
and
many
the ship
websites don't
walk.
actually have a
We
heat map
demate the
for,
chopsticks. We
watch
actually do a
time.
little wiggle check on
When
them,
fucking
make sure we have
Pornhub has a
control,
heat map
as we're gonna
for
be
like
using those for
years,
catch. Load up all of the
other video
hydraulics
distribution
that are
services
on
can
the
do it
tower,
too.
and then we did the
If
initial,
porn is doing it,
LOX
other
and methane
distribution
chills,
systems
getting
can do
them
it.
ready for prop load.
Now, speaking of prop load, we conducted the go, no-go poll for prop load at 3:30, so a little bit less than an hour ago. All was good there.
Used to be in the studio.
Prop load is underway.
Was it with her or with another one?
The LOX load on the booster started at T-minus 45 minutes, and fuel started at T-minus 43 minutes. Booster fuel will start at T-minus 41 minutes, and then LOX on the booster started at T-minus 35. So that will all wrap up at T-minus 3 minutes and 20 minutes on the ship side, and at T-minus 2 minutes and 50 seconds on the booster side. So everything is looking good. Propellant is loading.
Yeah, looks like we're about half full of everything on booster, 3/4 of the way there on ship, looking good for a launch today. With that though, let's jump over. Let's check back in with Jesse real quick and all of our teams out at Hawthorne.
Thanks, Dan and Kate, and great to hear the updates with the vehicle as we prepare for liftoff. There is a lot more people here.
They're paid bonuses. They're paid money. Oh, that guy had a line of Coke. The more you cheer, the more you get paid, guys. In Dogecoin.
Here, so there's a lot of that team here in the crowd, so they have a strong connection to the Starship flight today. Every flight test gets us closer to a fully operational Starship, which gets us closer to our ultimate goal to make humanity a multi-planetary.
Doesn't have the image though. Even
To
Pornhub has
establish cities
images
on
when you
Mars,
hover
we're
over the
going to
bar
need
so you can
high
look at it,
cadence,
guys. Come on.
low-cost flights for
When
cargo
adult
and
websites are
crew.
leading the way
As the
in
only fully reusable rocket with this kind of capability, Starship
in
is the
technology,
only
you know,
vehicle
there's
in
a bit
development
more that people
will
can
be
do,
able
right?
to unlock our multi-planet future. Starship uses a first-of-its-kind on-orbit propellant.
He's pushing that narrative hard, the whole multi-planetal species sort of thing, which I mean is actually true. Oh, that's so lewd.
Promises to be huge for Starship and our
That's
journey
lewd.
to Mars, with our first trip currently planned
Both
for
those
the
are
end
mail
of
ships, though. I don't know
2026.
exactly what's going on here.
Between the reusability, low cost, and heavy lift capabilities, this all comes together to help us deliver up to 100 people at a time to destinations both near and far, and to deliver payloads.
It's still, I
farther
mentioned this before, it's still
and
kind
at
of
a lower
weird
cost than any
that
other
they're going
vehicle.
for Mars right away
We'll
as
be able
opposed to the
launch
moon.
more
I still think
massive
a
payloads than
sustainable
anything
moon
else
base is actually a
flying
really
or
good
in
stepping stone to
development
Mars,
today,
but
capable of sending things like giant
Oh.
space telescopes or the next
they
generation.
could do it. They could do it much sooner and faster. I guess as NASA's trying to do it, so maybe that's kind of covered, but
So while today's flight
yeah.
is just a test, the future is
it's
much
prone to
closer
whatever
than we
Congress
realize.
wants to happen.
But one
The
full
biggest
test
kind of
outside,
setback,
so
guys,
let's
the
head
human
back to
spaceflight
Dan
is
and Kate
literally
for a
was
closer
literally
look at
having
Starship.
Saturn V canceled, and then made
Thanks, Jesse.
the space
Starship
shuttles. Which space
features
shuttles were pretty
two
cool,
major
right?
parts. The
Space
ship,
shuttles were
which
very
has
cool.
6 Raptor engines,
However, they didn't do it
and
nearly
the
as
Super Heavy
good
booster, which has 33
as
Raptor engines. The
center
Raptor
5
engine
in terms
is
of
a
payload or
reusable
cost.
methane oxygen staged
Nice game.
combustion
Thanks, Jen.
engine that powers the Starship
Yeah,
system.
we're going to cover
and has twice the
Starship
thrust
launch
of
prior
the Falcon
to playing
9
games.
Merlin engine.
So
Now, just
have to
like
bear
we
with it.
saw flights 1 through 6, the current iteration of Starship is an experimental vehicle flying for development. As we mentioned earlier, today's flight is debuting a ton of upgrades that we've had in the works in order to increase Starship's reliability and performance. Several of these upgrades will also unlock our ability to fly longer missions, something that we'll want to do as we start doing orbital flights around Earth.
And then to get an even better sense of just how big Starship is, we can start here. Let's take a person about 2 meters tall, towering over that. You got your Millennium
And
Falcon
DMCA
clocking in
in
at
3,
35.
2,
Just
1.
above that, we've got a Falcon 9 rocket, payload fairing attached. Double that height, you're up at 70 meters. And then topping it all off, nearly twice the size. It's a fully stacked
Also, by the way,
Starship up to
I think that's the first
123,
message I've had on
2 meters
Facebook Gaming
taller.
in
Altogether, the ship 52 meters, super heavy
Month?
booster 71, and what's super fun
So, there's
is
that.
we're going to make ship and booster even taller in the future.
Which is crazy, because turning around and looking at it and thinking that it's going to be bigger, that's
Gotta get
mind-blowing.
bigger. Make the ship as tall as
That's
it
what
is.
she said.
Now, moving up the rocket, the ship
Ah.
features 6 Raptor engines. 3 optimized for sea level performance and 3 optimized for vacuum performance. Raptor Vacuum, or RVAC, is a similar design to the Raptor engine, but features a larger exhaust section and a larger expansion nozzle to maximize the engine's efficiency in space. Our upgraded ship that we're debuting today carries about 300 more tons of propellant than the last flight's ship, bumping it up from 1,200 metric tons to about 1,500 metric tons. It's a lot. The ship is designed for vertical takeoff and landing on any hard surface. Now, the ship is also outfitted with newly redesigned forward flaps that are used to aerodynamically control the vehicle's attitude during atmospheric flight and enable a precision landing. The new flaps are lighter and positioned more leeward or away from the heat shield.
Now, to reach full reusability, the ship has to be able to survive re-entry not just one time,
That's
but
an upshot.
multiple times.
So that's
The ship's
middle of the
heat
rocket
shield
aiming
is
up.
essentially what does the job for that. We've been iterating on that every single flight, building towards that heat shield that requires no refurbishment between flights. Now,
Talked about this before, it'd be kind of interesting. So, in terms of fusion, which we don't really have net positive fusion. Well, we kind of do, but not really. Net positive fusion for fusion energy generation. What they do to actually keep the fusion energy reaction contained is with extremely strong magnets. So you can actually repel plasma with extremely strong magnets, and kind of theorize you potentially do that with a spaceship, right? AKA a deflector dish, right? Or deflector array, whatever you want to call it.
And second stages,
Hilarious how
our
everything's
hot
like Star
stage,
Trek
which we saw
in real
actions on
life.
flights 2 through 6.
But you need to have
The
a
hot staging
huge
maneuver
energy
is when the
generation on
upper
it.
stage
But you can't
engines
actually
are
have
ignited
nuclear energy
before the
generation
booster
on
engines,
in
before those
space, if you
booster
didn't know
engines
that.
are completely cut off.
Purely because
Hot staging, the
of
rocket never stops accelerating during
nuclear
separation, so it's more efficient
arms treaty
than
from like the
traditional stage
70s with Russia.
separation.
The
One of the
70s or
hallmarks
60s
of
with
Starship
from the
flights
Cold
are
War,
the
so
incredible
they can't
views
actually
that we
use
get throughout
nuclear
flight,
reactors in space.
Of course, courtesy
Although
of
at this point they
Starlink.
just explode
Every
when it's
day,
coming in,
we're
so that's
working
not
to
exactly what you
expand
want
the
either,
Starlink
right?
network
But potentially
both
could use
on
it as a way of
Earth
deflecting
and in
and
space.
saving on your
Here's Jesse
heat
with
shield.
more.
Fans of Starship may know that Starlink enables us to bring you lots of unprecedented views, both from space and here on Earth. In addition to the dozens of cameras on Starship itself, we also have mobile Starlink camera kits deployed in the Indian Ocean, connected to our aerial assets and all around Starbase, which all come together to help tell the incredible story of Starship, both on and off planet. Thanks to Starlink, Starship is capable of streaming more than 120 megabits of real-time, high-definition video and telemetry
and
in every phase of flight,
Edspot.
providing invaluable engineering data
Edspot.
to help engineers
How much
rapidly
did they pay you?
iterate
Actually,
across
she is paid.
all systems. And all of that streaming data will be put to good use with the more than 30 cameras
provide internet.
Oh, it's actually the sponsorship part.
covering a global set around the world.
I mean,
at
it makes sense. It is actually part of
Starlink.com/stories.
their branding, so.
Those in impacted
our excitement is growing.
Good
I
spot for
already
it.
am not sure if I'm going to be
No.
able to remain coherent after witnessing this, so looking
It's
forward
actually
to
how
it.
weird how many
You'll be
people
all right.
could
Just
use
a quick status
Starlink
check.
and
The
don't
ship
actually know it
fully
exists.
loaded
That's
and
actually a
its
thing,
main
by the way.
tanks unlocked in
Yeah.
fuel. We're going to load the header tanks.
So if you're outside
and
this,
booster's gonna be
even in
closing
the
out
U.S.,
real
if you're
soon as
outside of
well.
a city,
Let's
and you
talk
don't have
about that
access to a
second
lot
catch
of,
attempt, though. So we're going to use the tower's 2 gigantic robotic arms, call them the chopsticks, same thing we use to stack
you don't have
Starship
access
onto
to a lot of
Super Heavy
technology
for all the
that you would
integration ahead of
otherwise,
a
you know, like
flight,
you don't have
and that's
access
what we
to
use
fiber
catch,
for sure.
like moving
Maybe
stuff like
cable,
landing
probably
legs
not.
from the booster to the
And
ground
maybe you
side.
have
The
DSL
lighter
and
booster
4G
means you can
or
carry
5G.
more into space.
And that's not remotely comparable
now, in a
to
nominal
Starlink.
operational
No,
scenario,
Starlink's still a little bit
following
expensive.
liftoff, and after the 2 stages
To get their numbers up,
separate
they could
in
lower the
flight,
subscription price
Super
then.
Heavy will return to the launch site, reignite its engines to slow the vehicle down, and the tower's arms will catch the rocket booster.
And just to get to this point, just like before, thousands of distinct vehicle pad criteria have to be met prior to that return and catch. We need healthy systems on the booster, healthy systems on the tower, and a manual command from our mission flight director for
They
the
don't want to
day.
catch things that are
If
going
we
to
don't send that
explode,
command
because that would
before the
look worse
boost
than
back
having to
burn
explode
ends, or if any of those
just
automated
go down
checks
the
kick us
ocean.
out. That's what happened on Flight 6. The Super Heavy booster will divert to an offshore trajectory, and it'll go out and do a landing burn and a soft splashdown in the Gulf of Mexico.
Aw.
Now, we have said it before, but it remains true today. We accept no compromises when it comes to ensuring the safety of the public and our team.
Because that looks worse.
And that return will only take place
Unless
if
you
the
are
conditions
China
are right.
or some other place
One
where
of
you
the
can just
unique
cover it up.
aspects of Starship
Couple
flights
thousand people die.
is
It's not
the
really a
return
big
to
deal,
catch up
guys.
that Super
Don't worry
Heavy
about it.
booster and the audible sonic boom that it comes with it in the area around the return location. General impact to anyone in the area is just a brief thunder-like noise, but it definitely lets you know it's coming.
Oh, yeah. It's something our neighbors
Hear them
in Cape
even up.
Canaveral, Florida,
So
and
it's not just
Vandenberg,
starships, but
California, have become
military jets, for
accustomed
instance, will use
over the
code and
years,
afterburn, and
now
occasionally you
we're
can hear
bringing
them
the
in
boom to Boca. So here's
residential
a peek of what
areas.
to expect.
We do in Wisconsin, for instance.
We're all very excited.
Our range team just reported that we're looking go in the range. That's super important. Our
Great.
security guys, Mike.
Pressure, the ship will go to internal power. After that, the quick disconnect or QD arm lockout is removed in preparation for retraction, which will happen shortly after T0.
I don't know what CH4 and LOX
and yeah,
means.
once we pass T-minus 40 seconds, we do have the ability
S, maybe?
we have the ability to recycle the count under certain conditions back to that T-minus 40 second mark and hold there to assess what happened and assess opportunity to proceed again to T0.
Yep.
Oh,
Use that
we
T-minus
have
40
color
hold a
indicators at
couple
the
of
top right.
times.
Good.
Boat's usually
Yeah.
one of the items, but we aren't tracking anything right now.
I assume
that
this
would
is
cause us to
propellant
hold
or
there.
something that's filling.
We can hold there for several minutes. Main thing you're watching at is you kind of set a clock because your temperatures will change and the fuel and the locks, everything pretty quickly. So you've got a couple of minutes that you can hang out and figure things out. There are items that if we pass them, we're scrubbed for the day. One of the main ones is that flame deflector at the bottom of the launch mount. Water begins flowing for that at the T-minus 10 second mark. If we scrub at any point after that, we'll be done for the day. And then teams will need to refill the deflector as well as all of our prop that we use to load on board
please.
the vehicle. It's pretty much
Camera 3,
just
go.
under 11 million pounds of prop sitting on that thing right now. And we
It's
can
funny,
actually
when they did the
recycle
first
in about
Starship,
24
like I
hours
criticized
now.
it for basically the poor
So
coverage.
Which is incredible.
And I
given
imagine like a
the
media
sheer
budget or
volume
even
of
having just like
propellant,
an internal
that
studio
is
that
on
does
board
this
the
would be an
vehicle there on your
astronomically
screen.
small portion of actually making these things in the first place, right?
All right. Coming up on the
Like a
2-minute
small
mark.
news studio.
Again, a lot of ambitious things on
Basically
the
all
plate
they
for
do is the
Starship
media.
today.
And
T-minus 2
New
minutes.
ship,
you're,
new
you're
year,
building stuff
lot
like
of
this that just
upgrades,
explode. They don't
doing a lot of
even do anything
ambitious
right now,
things in
right?
space this time. Our
This
first
is all
payload
just money being
deploy,
burned every time it goes
relighting
up.
a Raptor engine.
Which is crazy if you think about it.
Yeah.
Like in terms of money and capital,
So, as we mentioned before, we
each
have
one of
an
these space
opportunity
flights,
to
one of the
hold
reasons
at
that basically you
T-minus
expect the
40
governments to
seconds,
do
not
stuff like this,
tracking
right?
any issues
And
at the
NASA,
moment
well,
that,
did it for a while.
would be necessary right
basically
now. So fingers crossed we
takes
can
the
pass
spearhead
through
on
that
stuff that isn't
checkpoint,
actually commercially
without
viable
stopping.
yet, right?
But the folks
Starship
on
goes up, it goes
console are
boom. It doesn't really do
continuing
anything,
to
right?
evaluate the
They
launch
don't really have
criteria,
a. This is a
making
lot of money,
sure
basically
that the
R&D.
winds are within
It just gets
limits
burned
as
every
well
time
as
these
any
things
other
launch.
weather restrictions, but man, compared to yesterday,
Which is
this
the whole
was
reason
a
we have
textbook
NASA to fill in
gorgeous
for
day.
stuff,
Oh,
that
yeah,
otherwise
little
isn't economically
breezy
viable
today,
for a
but we got
company.
Clear blue skies for a launch today.
They just kind of dropped
So
the
this
ball. It wasn't
one,
really
all the
NASA's fault, though.
prop
It's
has
Congress.
been loaded
Congress
on the
defunded
vehicle. We've
NASA.
closed everything out. we're doing our final thrust vector control or steering for the engine checkouts. Once we hit the 30-second mark, we'll hear the flight director give the final go for launch. So we're under a minute. As we said, we're not expecting a hold at T-minus 40, but do not be shocked if that happens.
Ruh-roh.
It has happened in the past, and we can hang out
Like
there
football,
for a
guys.
couple of minutes if we need to.
We're gonna call time.
If memory serves me right,
We hold my breath for 4 seconds.
Pass through prop load gate.
All right, we passed right through that prop load gate.
hot diggity dog.
All right, so we're going to
Little
let
bit
our
too
flight
much
director,
excitement
Ty
there.
Huntington,
Flight
take it
directors,
away.
go for launch.
And 20 seconds.
We don't really cover the launches of, was it Falcon? At all, because it's been
Minus
happening
10,
for a while, and that's not really
9,
the big
8,
kahuna. We've covered basically
7,
every Starship launch,
6,
though.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have liftoff.
You know they're going to mean business when you see 2 of these, because they have another crane or launch tower. When you see 2 of them out there at the same time, right? That's beautiful, guys.
Booster check pressure is nominal.
Every time I see this, it still looks fake. Like, it still makes me think it's CG.
All right,
Don't know
we're
why,
more than
especially
30
when they come
seconds
down.
into flight. Telemetry showing 33 out of 33 engines as it's pitching down range.
Booster, ship, avionics, power, and telemetry nominal.
Can't really appreciate those crackles, guys,
Very
unless
good
you've actually
call-outs
been
on the ship and
you've been
booster
within
avionics.
range
You
of
just
a
heard
large
the rumble
jet
hitting
engine.
us about 6
I've been to
miles away.
EAA a couple times, which is
Watch
the
the Starship
Experimental
arc into just
Aerial
endless
Aviation
blue skies
Association.
right now.
Experimental Aviation Association. That happens in Wisconsin every year,
Vehicle supersonic.
and they do demos of actual jets.
More than
Yeah.
a minute into flight, the vehicle's supersonic.
You can literally feel it in your body. It's in your soul, even if you're wearing ear protection on. There's like no way you can
Max
avoid
Q.
it.
So we just passed through max Q. That's the greatest stress the vehicle's going to experience on the way uphill. Reminder that
Ruh-roh.
all of our teams down here on the ground are now looking at systems on the tower. They just did a manual
some
check
duct tape
through.
going on there.
That's going to inform that manual flight director's
I don't even think
decision.
that's duct tape. That's like a piece of metal sheeting. Uh-oh.
Next moment coming up, though, is going to be hot staging.
Switch camera angle so we can't see
Don't
it.
take your eyes off it. It's one heck of a light show.
Once again, these things, you were on the one where they caught it. It blew my mind because they look like, I swear the ones on the first one that was caught were actually so fucking, like they were like literally like a quarter the size of this, like made out of unobtainium or something. Because they literally look like they're made of something that like, they were so small. Like here's a flap, right, for comparison in size. And I swear they weren't this big before, right? That's what she said. And like when I saw them, I thought it was just like a anomaly, but they're actually the catch arms, but they looked a lot smaller than that. Like if you look at the first test flight where they're caught, and they're like super fucking tiny.
Gorgeous ascent.
These look actually like meaty size, right?
6 ship engines getting ready.
Which once
to
again,
ignite.
it's like they may look
gonna
really
happen
big, but
while
it's
we're
holding up
still
an absolute
attached.
boatload of weight when it's caught.
We can still see the ship's engines from the ground.
Where's the picture-in-picture? Where's the picture-in-picture,
A little
man?
under 30 seconds away from that. We are hearing good call
We've
outs
done a
on the tower
simultaneous
preparedness,
liftoff
manual
with
checks.
multiple
Reminder,
angles
though,
with
we've
the
still got
picture-in-picture.
automated checkouts on the booster and
Oh,
the ship
God.
itself.
Production,
As of
production,
right
please.
Now, our manual checks and our manual commanding is looking go for a catch.
Booster engine cut off.
That is incredible news. We just heard the call out for booster
Alright,
engine
Nico.
cut off.
Engine startup.
Most engines cut off, down to those
Stage
middle
separate.
3.
Bye-bye.
Cruise press startup.
Bye-bye, booster.
All right, hot stage.
Left
confirmed.
is booster.
We've got a booster hopefully on our its way back to us, and a ship now making its ascent burn into space. How's it going in Hawthorne, Jesse?
It's It's great over here. You can hear the crowd.
Happened all in a
screaming
couple
for
minutes,
every
guys.
milestone.
Isn't it great? 6 minutes,
The
guys.
booster
Not
is now
even.
making
I mean,
its
we're
way
at 3
back
minutes here,
down
but you know,
to
6
Earth.
minutes. You got to have the 3 minute
Looks like
warm
we
up,
have
right?
12 of those
It's amazing what you can do in
engines,
6 minutes.
Ignited. We're using the engines that actually
Uh-oh,
gimbal.
you're missing
Go for
one.
booster return.
Oh, maybe there's normal.
An excellent call out there. We are
By the way,
go
I
for
know
booster
the
return.
end how this ends, but no spoilers, right?
There's a lot of criteria that needed to line up to ensure that we could have a
Burn shutdown.
safe booster catch, and it sounds like we got the go for that.
Woohoo!
And there you can see on your screen, we had we just jettisoned the hot stage, and there's a great.
Thought maybe the
excellent
third gen
view
is the one
there
without
of
one.
the hot stage floating
One of them doesn't
away
actually need it.
from
That's something
the
they added
super
in
heavy
to prevent
booster.
the booster from exploding.
Now we've shut down the engines for that boost back burn. That confirms boost back burn is now complete. That was the first of 2 burns required
Edwin.
for
Good
the
evening, Ro.
vehicle to make its way back down to
Spoiler
Earth.
yourself. I'm not gonna spoil it for you. I
next
said I'm
coming
not
up
gonna
will be
spoil
the
it.
landing burn. That's going to be 13 of those center engines igniting again.
It's hard to
that
basically
will
avoid it. Like
then
just
go
scrolling
down
Twitter
to-
today.
From 13
and
down to 3 engines
Google,
just right before we
At least there's more media covering it now. It's kind of a big deal. Like the shuttles, guys, when the shuttles took off and Saturn, especially the Saturn took off, huge, like nationwide news coverage, and then just no one gave a shit anymore, which is ridiculous considering how big of a deal this is.
As well. So
That's why I
looking
cover it
good
every
for
time,
that
even
so
though no one
far.
watches
Some
it, it doesn't
great
matter.
views there from the ship of Earth. That looks incredible.
Coverage by Starlink, too.
Now Starship's ship is still firing its engines right now.
Starship trajectory nominal.
And great call-outs. Starship trajectory is nominal. You can follow along the telemetry, the altitude in the bottom left-hand corner for the Super Heavy booster, as well as the bottom right-hand corner for the ship. And these views are just amazing.
They could do so much more with the UE, like make a little thing where it shows where it actually jettisons in like the atmosphere when it's going up.
Again, the booster is currently making
they have,
its
I think
way
it's incredible,
back to the tower.
where you can see where the line of it, like the
We're
arc
looking
as it
forward
goes up,
to
and then
a
you can see
booster
where it
catch
actually
with the
separates.
chopsticks.
You could actually make an UE
In the
based on
meantime,
the atmosphere,
you can see
like the
those
distance from the
Griffins
planet.
there
You can actually do a lot of cool stuff with
helping
this.
to control the vehicle
It's actually amazing,
and
guys.
guide
Like
it
video
back
games,
to
people
its
like
landing
older
zone.
generation kind of thinks it's a joke, but there's actually a lot of really cool like ways that video games
Now with that, we're
present
gonna hand it back. How's it
information to
going over
people
there,
when
Dan
they're
and Kate?
as a
How are
way
you doing, Kate?
of
Seeing that in person.
interpreting and understanding what you're like data sets that you're looking
Dan
at,
had
right?
to take that
Understanding,
entire segment
visualizing
because
data.
I couldn't talk. That was incredible.
There it is.
We can see the booster coming back in now through.
Where is it from the
close.
ground?
It looks that
Ground
way to
control?
us. It's
Ground
incredible
control,
that it
please.
basically returns. It looks like a speeding, just like
Ship
this
There it goes.
silver
Nominal.
flare coming.
Where,
back
by
to
the way, you have to do like a
once
zoom
again,
out,
we are standing
so you
by
can see
for,
the context of how far away it is, which is also
attempting
important,
to
right?
catch the booster at the tower. This would be the second tower catch.
Booster
Landing
start.
burn.
Too close.
Seeing 13 engines.
Production, please. There we go.
Booster now hovering as it aligns with the tower for
Still looks
catch.
fake as shit. I swear to God.
Booster coming in. Get
Down
ready
to-
for that boom, Kate.
Down to 3 engines.
They're all getting Dogecoin bonuses, guys. The entire audience gets Dogecoin. Good for them. Wonder if they can actually see it, like the 2 people standing outside. All CG. I mean, if you look at this, it does look kind of fucking fake, right? But obviously it's real.
You heard
but
it here. Mechzilla has caught the booster.
Once again, for the second time, a successful catch by the launch tower.
Picture in
This is
picture
the
right up
same
there in the top
tower,
right
the
where you
launch
can see the
pad
casters
where
talking about it
that
when it's coming in.
booster took off from just 7.5 minutes ago.
Like, look at this. Look how tiny these little arms are. This is all that's holding up. It's like 300 tons. These little things right here are holding up that entire thing. It honestly feels like these things, like unobtainium. Like, what the fuck is this shit? Obviously titanium, but, like, that's still pretty, like, look at, these are so small. It just, like, look how big the flapper is. Obviously, it's close to the camera, but just comparably to these, it just absolutely blows my mind.
Great view from the chopstick arms, looking
Unobtainium,
at those hypersonic
aliens.
grid fins that steer the booster for that precision landing.
That's actually a pretty good shot with that flapper right there, by
It
the way.
almost looks
That's
like it's
good
flapping
depth
its
of field.
Yeah,
wings.
you can see just how small that catch fetting is too on something that's
Here every
just
fucking
so
day. That's what I
massive.
said. That's what I said.
That was absolutely
Stealing my
insane.
lines of aliens, watching my broadcast.
Meanwhile,
We're not done. But
We're
wait,
not
there's
done yet.
more.
But there's more. That's what she said.
Wow.
They lose some
That is
engines?
just absolutely stunning. And this, of course, a gorgeous view there from the tower looking down at the top of the booster.
That's pretty cool. I like bringing this up, not to downplay Starship at all, because Starship is pretty fantastic, guys. If the fucking Saturn program 50 years ago was not canceled, we literally have this shit like 30 years ago. Like, there's no way that we wouldn't already have a reusable Saturn V or Saturn 10 at this point, right? And the Saturn actually basically could take the same amount of payload to ELO that this can. Obviously, this is reusable, but once again, we would have had reusable rockets a long time ago. And like, instead we went to the space shuttle, and then that was a huge waste of money. And then we retired them, and then we started buying launches from Russia before the Starship, basically, or before Falcon came along, right? And like, what the fuck? Yeah, and obviously it's not completely NASA's fault. NASA, you know, they only can do what they have with their budget. I think at the top, the peak of the Saturn program, they have like, what was like 5% of the U.S.'s GDP is a lot. Not GDP, budget. Like, it was like 5% of the U.S. budget, which is insane. Absolutely fucking insane at the time. I think the Department of Defense is like 40%, which is also ridiculous, right? But they turned it in, I think it's like now at 0.5% or something ridiculous. You can actually look it up, like, just out of curiosity here. I like bring this up on the NASA budget by year. Kind of sad. Like, it ballooned during the Apollo program, you know, when we're trying to beat the commies, right? Percentage of federal budget, yeah. It was at 4.5% in 66, which is insane. And then it popped and fizzled. I think this is funding for basically the shuttles to keep them going, and then just fizzled out. Now we're basically at 0.5%, which is absolutely insane. They try to do what they can with what they have, right? But they used to be able to do a lot fucking more. Canceling the Saturn program was a huge deal. I don't even know if they did. I don't know if Congress authorized that or basically NASA did that. Either one of the two did it, and then they brought around the whole reason the SLS exists is because it's a way of getting basically funding out of Congress. And it's basically just appeasing a bunch of people that that they need jobs. That's why it looks the way that it does, because it's made out of recycled shuttle parts.
All right, man,
NASA's just trying to do what they can. It's not their fault.
Now we're standing
But
by for
this is fantastic.
views from
But
the
a Saturn
ship,
V
to
god,
can
oh
take
my
their
god,
eyes off of
oh my
that
god, just like
incredible
just think.
sight.
I guess it doesn't hit
That is
people the
once
same way,
again
but thinking about that,
the
just
second catch of a booster back at the
there's a
launch
second one.
tower.
There's a second one. Launch tower's not done. Wonder when this is going to get done. Once again, you don't even need to launch two. You just need to have another one out here so people can see it.
It was incredible to see it come back down. Just this
They're
silver
building it during the
flare
last
in
launch, which I
sky.
think was December.
And we can still see the launch plume behind us, and wow, that we definitely I can't speak
There's a
for you,
pit.
Dan, but that was very moving for me.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
And right
I'm
now
sorry, Dan.
you can see some of the telemetry on those ship engines has gone out, and we're waiting for an update on what our ship status is. We were approaching that ship engine cutoff time, so just waiting to hear. So obviously we've got booster back, booster on the launch tower in the chopstick arms, but we are waiting to get an update now on the ship. As we were expecting ship engine cutoff about 40 seconds ago. We saw some of those engines start to go out prior to that point.
Yep.
And so right now we are just standing by to try
Trouble.
and get
Think of the
latest
astronauts.
word on where we
Dan,
are
think of
with
the
ship.
astronauts
So
on board.
Stick with us for just a couple of minutes as we wait to hear some updates.
Now, if you just recently joined us, you might want to hit rewind and go
I could
back
never be a fucking
about
commenter,
9,
guys.
10 minutes ago.
Like the
to
ability
when
to just
Starship
open your
lifted
mouth
off,
and make words.
from the launch tower that you
Like
see
when your
there.
brain's thinking about like
We
5
had
million
a
other things is not
gorgeous
something I can do.
ascent,
I can't just
followed
open my
by
word,
a
my
stage
mouth and make
separation where
words
the
of
ship
just
separated from a
random
super heavy booster.
things. That's
The
actually really
booster
important as a
performed
commentator.
flip
And
maneuver and returned back to
I'm like Dan
the
here
Gulf
trying to figure out
Coast
what's
here.
going
There
on,
you can
and
see
that's
it
not
on
really
your
good
screen.
for
Obviously,
someone on.
a successful catch back at the launch tower, which is something that we were all hoping to see and really couldn't ask for a more beautiful background with those blue skies and blue water there. As Dan said, we are standing by for an update on the ship that had ignited its engines and started making its way up to space. So standing by for more info on that. But wow, what an experience to see that take off and for that booster to come back. You can see it there up close on your screen to the place that it launched from. Once again, there were thousands of catch commit criteria, which is basically just all the things that we have to assess and evaluate and basically make sure that they are make sure that everything is clear and acceptable conditions, both on the vehicle side as well as the tower side, in order to enable that catch. So obviously from the last 2 flights that we have done, where Flight 6 we attempted but had to divert into the ocean, and then on Flight 5 we did have the first ever successful catch of the booster. We used the learnings of those 2 flights to hone in that catch commit criteria, and we saw success today, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah. And just a quick status check. So we currently do not have comms with the ship. So trying to figure out exactly when that happened and exactly what happened. So obviously the flight controllers right now going through their data, looking to make sure it's not anything instrumentation on the ship, but actually try and get us a status. So again, we're gonna keep listening in on this.
Sometimes my microphone does it. That's not good that it's doing it again.
A little bit more. So for now, stage 1.
Well, at least you caught that right away. So,
waiting to find out a little
as I
bit more
was saying,
about stage 2.
I can't just make words, and it's actually a really important thing because monkeys need to see your words, right? But I was actually going to say that that's actually really important is the fact that they caught it. Even because the last flight, they didn't actually catch it, right? They had to drop in the water, and maybe it's the city builder in me. Yeah, I had to fix it. The city builder in me just doesn't want to see any sort of waste when it's happening, but I wonder if they can just, like, set it down at this point. Like, could they actually just drop it onto the platform, or do they have to do a bunch of checks before they do that? I'm not exactly sure what their flow chart is, but it's a good time to see it just go to the ground. Need some DMCA free music right now. Waiting.
Maneuver, we did see all 6 of ship's engines on the way uphill during its ascent, but as we were getting to the end of that ascent burn, we saw engines dropping out on telemetry, and we have since lost contact with the ship. So again, we're still listening.
Not looking good.
On the loops, trying to figure out
Caught the booster this time, but
get right now.
things aren't looking good for the actual Starship.
As soon as we hear them. Really exciting. We were able to catch the booster today. Obviously, we want to get the ship all the way over to the Indian Ocean. May not be able to do that at this point.
Yeah,
but we'll give you
I think
some
it's worth
updates
covering.
as soon as we hear a little bit
We
more
talked a
about
little
the
bit
ship.
earlier about
For
basically
those
how
that
it's
didn't
important
catch,
for
earlier,
like
this
how
was
big and
a
pivotal
new
like
version of
the
the
Saturn
ship.
launches
This
were
was
in
its
U.S.
debut
history.
flight.
I think this is
So
worth
a lot
covering
of
too, because
learnings
this
here for
isn't really
sure,
on the same scale as like
as we
Falcons.
continue to tune in and listen in with the teams and try to gather more information
many different
to
ways.
understand where we stand with the ship. But as
They
Dan
did a nice
mentioned before,
recap this
teams
time
are trying
around
to
for
make
the other
sure,
space flights.
that it's not an instrumentation error. We want to find out if it's, did we just lose communication, or did something else happen with the ship? So teams are actively working, trying to figure out what we can find out. And,
We're
we're continuing to listen in and find out more information to share as we can. But as we said before, and you can see it there on your screen, what a beautiful, beautiful sight to see another booster back at the launch tower. That was successfully caught just minutes ago after sending the ship off into space, and having seen it for the first time with my own eyeballs in person, it was pretty awesome. And Yeah, the thunder-like sonic boom was
I
really
swear,
fun to
I swear this retroactively updates to stuff that I actually react to
we
while
are
watching
getting
this.
a little bit more. So we did lose all communications with the ship. So I mean that is essentially telling us that we had an anomaly with that upper stage. So
Happened, by the way,
just
earlier
coming
today.
up to the end of that ascent burn for the ship when we stopped when we started to lose a couple of the engines. We saw those dropping out, and then we did lose
Oh,
telemetry
look at the
from
watch.
ship. So that means we
Oh,
didn't
people
have
are
contact
leaving the
with it.
stadium.
So at this point, we are assuming that the ship has been lost. So this
Ruh-roh.
was a brand new vehicle, essentially. This was kind of an upgrade
Starship,
version.
even though there's
So
6,
with
this
that, there's a lot of
is
things you're upgrading, but
V2.
there's a lot of things you're going to
Put a
learn as
V2
all
somewhere.
those systems are now interacting with each other for the first time. But at this point,
07.
we did lose the upper stage of the ship. So again, we're gonna listen in and try and figure out a little bit more about what happened. And obviously, we'll do
Devastated.
kind of a full breakdown once we get smarter ourselves in the coming
This is our
hours
life,
and
guys.
days as well.
For sure. Now, for those that have recently tuned in, we're now a little over T plus 16.5 minutes after liftoff. We do believe that we have lost the ship during its ascent phase. It's successfully separated from the Super Heavy booster.
And once again, this is all over the news, so it's tough to... I got it spoiled for me, guys. Like, literally just interacting with Google today just instantly spoiled this for me.
We are assuming that we have lost
Which I guess
the
is good,
ship,
because that means other
but
people are
we
seeing it.
standing by to confirm that, and once we can, we will. But this was a new version of the ship, of Starship, and it was intentionally designed and flown in order to basically test the envelope, as we have done with every one of these test flights. The keyword there
that's
being
kind of a better way of rewording saying
it
is they did explode.
For the ability of this vehicle to fly and understand where those boundaries are. So we always
Boundary testing.
knew
Wow, where
that,
we heard that before. You know what's
excitement-
weird, guys? I've pointed this out a couple times. It's weird how everyone in gaming has kind of went from this idea that inting, as they call it, right, which is intentionally feeding, has actually turned into something they call limit testing now, which is actually true and actually really important for any sort of iterative process, because you can't actually, if you're trying to play safe all the time, you can't actually change and make things better, right? In order for you to play better, you have to expand your boundaries and do things that are sometimes unsafe in order to figure out what is and isn't safe and what you can actually do better and improve upon, right? So now the kids call it limit testing instead of inting, right? As a way of they've evolved to the point where they realize that they have to iterate in a way that might be unsafe in order to actually do something better, right? Yeah, limit testing. And inting, which intentional feeding, is actually a far cry. Well, not a far cry, but actually a step off from not interpreting, initiating, which is the first. When I first heard int, I thought initiating, right? Because it kind of goes hand in hand. But no, it's intentionally feeding, but you don't know it's intentionally feeding until after the fact when you die. And, maybe sometimes predictively, you're doing something that's unsafe, right? But initiating is actually incredibly important, and there's always risk associated with initiating, which is kind of interesting in and of itself. You're talking about, like, philosophy here, right? It is interesting in and of itself because you have to initiate in the same way you have to do an iterative process, and it's potentially unsafe because you're going to the unknowns, right?
Is guaranteed today. Success not guaranteed. And so, yeah, we are standing by to see if we can learn more about the status of the ship.
You guys like nuts? Those nuts in your mouth? Oh, yeah. Some DMCA free music here. Maybe they need a nice anthem. They need to commission a nice anthem. The SpaceX anthem.
Thanks, everyone, for
They're
continuing
good. I mean,
to stick around.
They have a massive budget. They could 100%. They could 100% commission music. I mean, fucking Helldivers did it, so.
Thanks everyone for continuing to stick around as we were checking in
problem.
on the status of the ship. At this point in time, we can confirm that we did lose the ship. However, Starship, the total vehicle,
I didn't know
did
whether or not they're
have,
going to show anything
an
here,
on-time liftoff at
but on social media, there's
4:37
people actually
p.m.
showing it
Central Time
basically
from the launch pad just behind us in Starbase, Texas.
coming in through the atmosphere, and it looks like a
Gorgeous
giant meteor
ascent
shower,
and
which is actually
successful
pretty cool.
stage separation. The booster pushed the ship off, and the ship disconnected during that stage separation. The booster came back for a successful, the second ever booster catch at the launch tower, which was pretty incredible to see.
Yeah, it was great to see the booster come down, but we are obviously bummed out about ship. It looked like we lost contact with it a little under 8.5 minutes into flight. That's roughly when you start to get to that main engine cutoff.
Another one down.
We obviously need to go through all the data. It's going to take some time. In the next hours, days, we're going to figure out exactly what happened, come back, fly the next one, get even farther.
Apparently,
it's a
the
test.
plans to
It's
launch
a
one next
flight
month.
test.
Like they literally
It's an
sped it
experimental
up.
vehicle. So we'll figure out what ended our day today and make sure it doesn't end our day tomorrow. So as we do that, we're going to continue to provide you updates on our the next.
Done and done, guys. So, RIP. Starship 7 debris. Actually, pretty cool looking. It actually would have been great if they had shots of this in their cast, but they didn't. So, actually pretty fucking crazy looking. Yeah, like, this is shit you see in sci-fi, guys. Yeah. That's something. Rapid unscheduled disassembly. Hmm. So, I mentioned before, this is actually kind of important, is it's not so much not only showing successes, but also you occasionally have to show the failures. And the reason for that being important is because not only it's a failure that actually looks pretty spectacular when it happens, but also shows you that not only are, it does not matter, but they're actually going to improve on it and it's not going to happen again, right? So some people might go, like, it's weird how, like, when Starship 1 exploded and people are freaking out about the pad and everything, it didn't fucking matter. It's like literally mountain out of a molehill sort of shit, right? Where people are freaking out about something that necessarily wasn't even that big of a deal because it's an iterative process and the next one's going to be better and better and better and better and better, right? You got the average needle moving up, and that's what's really important. So even though something like this happens, and it will happen, the whole idea that basically the next one might not, probably won't, and then you just keep moving further with that, right? And there's no people on board, so it really doesn't matter. Hopefully it doesn't land on people, but most of the stuff just burns up in the atmosphere when it comes in. So it's going to happen, right? Failure is one of the greatest motivators, yeah. It's a giant fucking iterative process. It reminds me, Wings of Honiamis, it's a really old anime. Weirdly enough, actually, it just, like, gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. And it's not necessarily goosebumps in, like, the fucking weeb kid watching anime sort of way. Wings of Honiamis is basically an anime. It's a really kind of older anime. I think it's from the 80s or 90s. And it's basically about conflict between two nations and how basically spaceflight essentially united both the nations. And the Wings of Honiamis actually has multiple iterations there, basically where they show, they go through multiple iterations of exactly what you're seeing here, which is just stuff exploding and blowing up on the road to success, right? It's actually really, really cool. Really, really cool anime. Kids probably haven't watched it nowadays, but it's actually a classic. Honiamis, the Royal Space Force. 95. No, 87. When Cadet Shiro Ledet signs up with the Royal Space Force, he encounters ridicule and apathy from manipulative leaders and cynical public. A chance encounter with a devout young woman spurs Shiro on towards his destiny to become the first man in space. While military leaders conspire to use the space program to spark an all-out war, Shiro as a team of aging scientists race against time to complete the first launch. The countdown has begun. Basically, first launch of the space. It actually makes me kind of want to tear up, guys. Just want to tear up thinking of this. Actually, a really, really cool anime. Rare example of hard sci-fi anime, and it deals primarily with motivation for space mission. It's about creating hope and unifying humanity in a singular achievement. Found an alternate reality setting to be quite refreshing, the animosity of their society towards the space program. They're basically made fun of and shunned constantly. Towards draws parallels to our own society. That being said, an alternate world is a wonderful, distinct, intricately detailed, and evolved. Yeah. So there's actually strife, social unrest that is happening in it. And it's basically a movie about how one giant achievement basically just unites essentially an entire planet or entire species, which is actually really, honestly really cool, and basically very much on par with what's kind of going on right now. Actually, I'd highly recommend watching that. I don't know why it's rated so low, but you know, it's older, and maybe people aren't on board with it. The animation's older, it's a little bit aged, but the if you guys are into kind of a wholesome kind of coming-of-age anime, this is actually pretty good. Highly recommend. This is once again, this is an 80s anime. Planetis isn't even like this. Planetis is like garbage collection in space, which also, I mean, is kind of something that happens. It's like wholesome garbage collection in space. It's actually really, really cool. It's actually kind of weird how many parallels there are to basically this movie and what's kind of going on right now. Although not really. We aren't really at war. I mean, obviously, some people could nitpick that, but, you know, society, social unrest just happening at the same time, and just, like, how people generally need goals and things to strive for in life in order to actually kind of better themselves, and when they don't have that, they kind of, idle hands is the devil's workshop, right? That's actually a pretty good meme, and it's nothing to do with religion. Just people sometimes have too much time on their hands, and then they do the wrong things with it. It's actually really, highly recommend this movie, guys. I don't think I've ever talked about this when we watched Starship, but very much, this is part of my childhood. I watched this when I was younger, and a very cool movie. Very, very cool movie. Don't mention Starship, SpaceX. You guys didn't mention Wings of Honiyamas. Please. Please. Draw so many fucking parallels. It's actually kind of hilarious. You could draw so many parallels to that movie. Okay. Well, it is for, once again, I don't have a lot of time to stream at night, guys, and I did plan on covering this regardless of how much time I have. That's just the way that it works, so I did want to cover this. There is, take this with a grain of salt. Occasionally we keep up with UAPs and UFOs, mainly with stuff that is remotely credible or otherwise is not aliens built the pyramids. I don't give a shit. You can't prove it. It doesn't really matter at this point. Aliens probably could prove it. They don't talking to us though, so at least that we know about. Aliens aren't talking to us, so you can't really, you know, it doesn't really matter if you can postulate aliens built the pyramids. Maybe they did. Either way, it doesn't really matter at this point, but stuff that we can actually kind of work off of and kind of move forward with as kind of a civilization, right? I'm very, very much pro full disclosure if there is anything, not stuff that's from YouTube and Tinfoil Hat Crowd and the UK UAPs in November and October, and then the New Jersey UAPs, which are still happening, by the way. You can still find them on X or Twitter. You have to, in order to actually find them, though, you have to go up to this bar here, and you have to type UAP in it. You have to type it in the search bar. They aren't going to pop onto your timelines. Today, I actually saw some of my timelines, which normally they don't. Even though I look at the stuff and engage with it relatively regularly, it doesn't end up in my feed. Weirdly enough, it doesn't end up in my feed, which is interesting because, you know, Twitter tries to show you everything you want to see, right? It doesn't show up in my feed. Today it did. And the big thing is, apparently there's some whistleblowers that are coming forward and talking to News Nation. News Nation is a media outlet that, weirdly enough, appeared when Arrow was formed in, like, 22, which is the resolution, the government resolution office, for basically transparency for UAPs and reporting UAPs in the first place. They popped up and seemingly came out of nowhere in roughly, say, 22, 21, at the same time Arrow came out. And kind of gaining traction, but they've reported a lot of stuff, and they're very, very media, like, bias central, which is actually weird nowadays, because you need funding from somewhere, right? They're biased, relatively central, and generally factual, so they've been generally covering UAP coverage, and not necessarily in a hysterical, sort of, once again, aliens built the pyramid sort of way, but really just kind of stuff that's credible, and actually has purpose. And curiously enough, tomorrow, so Saturday, they actually have a video. I don't think I can watch it because, once again, News Nation gets my VODs muted, so unfortunately, because I would cover it. However, I believe they have a video tomorrow. Maybe we'll try watching it anyways and see if my video gets muted anyways. I don't really want a DMCA to watch the aliens built the pyramids, but yeah. So tomorrow they're apparently having Whistleblowers on. There's the one that they teased today, the 4-minute teaser they had today, was of... Here, let's just take a look at it. Let's just take a look at it real quick here. They had a 4-minute teaser on it, and hopefully I don't get VOD muted. Probably will. New Nation. And weirdly enough, they also have, like, no... Like, their subscribers are growing, and their viewership's growing. But, like, they just, like... For what they're doing, I expected them to actually be, like, relatively credible. They are relatively credible, but it doesn't seem like there isn't, like, anyone watching them. It's kind of weird. Let's see. Like, they do a lot of stuff, right? They report on everything. Generally non-biased and relatively factual. The biased media chart, if you're curious about that. Where is the premiere thing? I think they started out as mainly a YouTube reporting thing. Hydrants didn't work. They did not. Where is it? I watched it earlier today. Ones that they really have here that trend or have, like, is literally just all their UAP stuff. They do a lot. There's a lot of stuff here. Like, they're pumping content. Here we go.
UFO sightings the military can't explain. Congressional hearings, Pentagon whistleblowers, armadas of strange aircraft flying over, of all places, New Jersey. What does it all mean? Well, since last year's groundbreaking interview with whistleblower David Grush, News Nation's been out front on this story, and we've got another major exclusive.
Well, as we can go, guys.
A whistleblower is coming forward saying he's not just saying he's heard about a secret government
tomorrow. So this is a preview for tomorrow.
UFO crash remains. He says he's worked on this program. He claims to have video to prove it, and credentialed colleagues who back him up, and he has the attention of at least one senior lawmaker. News Nation's Ross Coulthard has been working on this story for more than a year. He conducted the interview for a special report airing right here this Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And News Nation correspondent Joe Khalil is here with a first look. Joe, these are pretty stunning claims.
Yeah, they are, Elizabeth.
And allegedly, well, so this is going to go one of two ways. It's either going to be a complete clown show, or it actually might be something somewhat credible tomorrow, which is also... Either way, it's going to be interesting, as it turns out. But, like, they don't... News Nation tends to pick through the crazies, so I'm actually leaning more towards it actually being credible. But that remains to be seen. And allegedly, he has footage, too.
Force veteran, and he is coming forward with some shocking claims. The first person to go public saying that he actually participated directly in a secret military program that he believes was to retrieve UAP or alien craft. Now, Barber says he was contracted as a helicopter pilot. He retrieved all kinds of crashed craft. Some of it, he says, top secret and explainable. Others, he says, however, he believes were non-human origin. It's not just him. We've got three
aliens. Non-human origin is aliens. NHIs.
Well,
that's intelligence.
On camera to News Nation. So take a listen quickly to just part of Ross Coulthard's conversation with Barber.
So tell me about the moment when you realized that you were involved in a retrieval of non-human technology, alien tech.
So it became very clear the first time our communication process and procedure was modified. And then just visually looking at the object on the ground, you could tell that it was extraordinary and
Not a fan of the alien ambience in the background.
How close did you get?
Well, I was a helicopter pilot, and I operate with 150 foot to 200 foot long line. So I got within 150 feet of this object.
What did you see?
I saw an egg, a white egg.
Was there any visible propulsion system on it?
No,
a new one.
Not what we would know. There's no engine, there was no thermal signature. I was operating at night when I finally came in to pick it up, so I'm working under night vision goggles at the time. And it was quite clear. I flipped them up, flipped them down, and looked at it a couple
Drones are in the news. They're still in the news.
How did you know that?
I talked about this, and if you're curious about this, guys, they still pop up every day. Go to Twitter and type UAP in the search box in the top right. They're all very low view, like low impression posts. Once again, for some reason, UAP and UFO content is deboosted on Twitter, or maybe people don't want to see it. But I can't get it in my fucking feed ever. But you can go and type it in UAP in the search box. It'll pop up stuff. Some stuff is just balloons, kites, crazy shit. But then there's other things that aren't. And that's like, it doesn't matter how many fucking drones, how many fucking airplanes are there. That's going to happen. What matters is that fucking third one that you can't fucking explain. Because it doesn't matter how many of these happen, right? This doesn't matter at all. What happens to this one? This little guy here. Yeah, that little guy there matters a lot because it's not something you can just easily explain away. And it's 100%, they're still going on right now. And there's one of the senator, I think it was, a Republican senator, came out on like the 7th. Watched a clip on him where he's like, it's still happening, just the media is not covering it all anymore. And he's like, yeah, that's kind of weird. But now there's this going on, which is, yeah, this is also kind of weird, by the way. BTW. And also, in my personal opinion, worth covering. I'm not going to cover a special from the Discovery Channel on who built the pyramids. But I think stuff like this is credible enough where it's worth, even if it's fake and it gets debunked.
Egg-shaped object was non-human in origin.
Well, visually, after seeing all kinds of things in my past, it was clearly something.
By the way, some of these questions are really basic, but it needs to be said to establish credibility and basically as a witness credibility, as well as explaining it to people that might not have an idea what's going on or a very simplistic idea what's going on.
At no stage were you ever subsequently told that the craft was of non-human origin?
I will tell you that during this process, over the last couple of years, it's been confirmed to me by ranking members of the UAP task force that what we were working with that night was in fact NHI, and it was not a unique experience.
Meaning,
so Elizabeth,
not a unique experience means it's actually common.
You can see here they've also got some
actually
exclusive
kind of hilarious.
video of one of these retrievals that's never before been seen.
So allegedly they have video too.
Barber has met with some high-level Senate staff. So a lot.
Kind of like, once again, this isn't a Discovery Channel special. It's kind of a big deal.
That's a blockbuster. All right, Joe.
That's a blockbuster.
We can all watch Hunting UFOs, the Crash Retrieval Whistleblower, this Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern, right here, only on News Nation.
So,
thanks so much for watching.
In before News Nation is actually run by aliens. In before News Nation is actually run by aliens trying to push the government for disclosure.
More of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.
I'd actually kind of agree with that, and it's not just, it isn't just for saying. There it is, by the way. Did News Nation even cover the Starship launch? Yeah, by the way, News Nation covers all this shit, but not really, like, once again, it's not just, like, you're finding some random shit on YouTube and just posting it, right? Which makes it more credible, but take it with a grain of salt. Okay. There's a lot of it. They're still reporting on this stuff. At this point, News Nation will interview an actual NHI alien, and the Pentagon will say no credible evidence of extraterrestrial activity has been found. Yeah. I bet the general public... I mean, so, like, you're going to always find crazies, guys, in the comment section here. It doesn't really matter how many crazies there are if you look at this and it makes you feel crazy or whatever. Yeah. Ross guy, is that the bald white guy? Actually, there's two bald white guys. The guy with hair, then. This guy? Maybe with this guy? I'm an American, and I'm so invested in this thing, it's nothing to do with the U.S. Yeah. It's news for the whole world. Yeah, no shit it is. Aliens are kind of a big deal. It's actually kind of weird. It's kind of weird. I think he's kind of like the voice of News Nation. Like, you know how, like each news channel, not really the voice, but each news channel kind of has, like, their anchor that people just really know and just, like, immediately, like can kind of pick out. I think that's kind of the way he goes for News Nation. And kind of like it kind of feels like they're trying to do like a 60 Minutes thing here, which is good because 60 Minutes, regardless you might be making fun of it, or maybe you know your grandparents watched 60 Minutes. 60 Minutes was actually a big deal for basically bringing credible, in-depth journalist footage to basically everyone for the long time. It was actually a very credible news outlet for the longest time that people went for basically everything that, you know, wasn't in just the mainstream news all the time. It's actually really, really important. And maybe kind of went the way of the dodo, but they kind of seem like they're trying to replicate it here. And I think that's a good deal, because it actually, in a case like this with aliens or NHIs or UAPs, regardless of what you believe, you have to flush out the stigmas, you have to flush out the bias, and separate yourselves, even though you might want to believe, right? You have to separate yourselves out from the people that just, like, you know, are talking about the fucking 5G causing COVIDs and shit like that, right? Because at some level there are going to be people like that really just want to believe, and it turns into kind of a religion, and that's not where you want to be. You want to be on kind of the scientific, observational, credible side of things. And once again, I don't normally cover this stuff unless I feel as though it's relatively credible or relatively inexplainable in a way that, you know, I'm just not drinking the Kool-Aid, right? And I think it's actually worth covering this stuff and talking about it, because it's really, so he actually potentially has footage, and putting aside the fact this guy literally looks like he's high on crack or something, but this is also kind of just there's two things that come to mind right now. Is either this guy snorted a line of cocaine, or, which by the way I'm not trying to discredit him, I'm just saying kind of the way that he looks right now, or he's talking about something he knows he's not supposed to talk about, and he doesn't know what's going to happen, but he feels as though, you know, you ever see like a kid that's talking about something and is like kind of agitated and just like blown out of their mind? Kind of feels like what's going on here, which may mean that it's more credible. I'm not exactly sure what to go with that, but yeah, just like looking at him right now, yeah, he's like, yeah, I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say this right now. You know, the guy holding the microphone where he says like well button, everyone tries to stop him. That kind of feels like what's going on here right now, and yeah. So tomorrow this is airing, probably try and cover it. Depends on whether or not my video gets muted tonight. We'll see afterwards. Maybe I'll cover it anyways. It depends. Sometimes they'll just make you trim stuff out of the video. Other times, usually you don't get a strike for it. They'll just mute parts of your VOD too. This is important enough where I feel as though it's worth my time to cover this as opposed to playing video games for you guys. So, yeah. But, yeah, Starship guys tonight I thought was interesting and well worth covering. We're going to cover basically all the Starship launches till they become normalized, which who knows when that's going to happen. I still think they should put down a moon base. They could 100% do that. They could easily do that with the Dragons right now. Like, Elon Musk has a fucking fleet of Dragons, and it would be literally just a great stopgap to fucking Mars, you know, just along the way. They're literally mass-producing starships right now, and Mars might be the end, but there's going to be a lot of kinks along the way, and it's much easier to fix kinks when they're only a couple 100,000 miles away, as opposed tens of thousands of miles away, as opposed to Mars, right? It's actually kind of logistically a good place to stop. Distance to Mars. 33 million miles. Okay, so I was off a little bit. That's no, not Mars, Moon. No, I was 238,000 miles. So, yeah. It's a quick jaunt, you know? It's just like you're driving across the states. It happens, right? Either way, I still think going to the moon is actually an establishing a moon base. Even if you could make a credible argument for tourism, and then one for industry too, which helium-3 I believe is very prevalent on the moon, but it's not on Earth. So like industry, right? Actually, you can make a very, very good argument for starting with the moon, and then going from there. And you could do a lot sooner, and you could do it with the technology we currently have that's sending people into space. until we basically, step up, right? But we can do, you can do things in parallel. You don't need to just go, oh, we can only go to Mars and only we can go to the moon, right? You can do both at the same time. And I personally think this, the moon's, still don't know why we don't have a moon base, but it's actually a really good stopgap in the way. Unless Musk knows, there's actually some clips flying around on Twitter where Musk is actually kind of, not alluring, what's a good word for that? He's alluding to knowing more about basically UAPs and NHIs than we're being told, and maybe the clip is being taken out of context, but it actually seems like he might know something we don't, so maybe Mars is just where we're just going to end up anyways. It doesn't even matter. We don't need to worry about stopping at the moon, so to speak, so we don't need to even operate off the premise of, improving things, right? Just, taking things as a stepping stone, so to speak. But maybe that's also, a lot of clips and stuff are being taken out of context. It's kind of weird, by the way. With the interesting thing is with the News Nation thing, when that popped up, then there's all of a sudden there's this weird drama between Elon Musk and fucking Asmongold of all people, just a normie streamer, right? And apparently there's a back and forth tizzy going on right now, and it actually kind of feels like it's designed to distract you from the fact that this is going on right now, and this actually might be meaningful. I don't know if it is. Once again, take it with a grain of salt. I want to believe, but I need to be given stuff to believe in, right? And I very much want this to be true, but it might not. It might be another nothing, right? But every year, as it's turned out, as we've talked about before, every year since basically Aero was formulated, and I think they instituted it in 21 and it came to be in 22. Ever since this started happening, the number of UAP and UFO sightings and the credibility of them is increasing each year, and it seems to come and go in spurts. It's like an oscillating patterns, right? Yeah. It seems to go in kind of an oscillating patterns where there's peaks and they kind of figure out how people deal with it, and then a little bit more, and then deal with it, and a little bit more. And I mentioned before, it either feels like full disclosure, so the government and everyone talking about UAPs might be this year, or they might be waiting until next year. But either way, it feels like they're kind of increasing sightings, kind of normalizing basically the weirdness of how things are going to turn out. If you're talking about first contact with an alien civilization, it actually matters a lot, right? So people don't set everything on fire and rip their hair out for whatever reason because people are monkeys. It's kind of sad, but there are really some people that are like monkeys. It's just part of being human, guys. Asmongold is far from a normie. I mean, when you talk about just being just a Joe that streams, I think he's pretty normal. There's a lot of personalities in streaming, and he's not really actually that far outside the ordinary, even if his eyebrows go like this every time he talks, which is totally intentional to draw your attention away from the stuff that he's actually saying, where he goes like this constantly. This would just literally just get old just constantly, because I can notice this. My eyeballs are so observant of stuff that happens around me. So if I do like this with my eyebrows constantly, it actually fucks with my eyes and actually just drives me crazy. So I can't actually just do my eyebrow things like this constantly over and over and over again, even though he does. But yeah, I'd say he has some. He's not afraid to go outside the politically correct take on things. But then sometimes he also has bad takes. So I guess take it with a grain of salt. Also had some nuts, guys. Good watch. But tomorrow, guys, this is going on, so we're going to take a look at this. Maybe my VOD will get muted, just the way it is, but I think it's substantial enough where it's worth covering. But maybe not. And it's probably going to be an hour-long piece, so maybe we'll take a look at this. What's going on here? I hope they don't mute my VOD, but maybe they will. Yeah, egg-shaped object. So, it's funny, I saw this meme on Twitter. I talk about basically, we just mentioned basically alien civilizations kind of getting people ready for first contact, right? So he described it as it being an egg, right? And we talked about the jellyfish UAP. The jellyfish UAP is pretty common in Afghanistan. It's pretty common in Afghanistan, which it looks like, if you guys are familiar with Star Wars, it looks almost identical to a seeker drone, right? And it's not necessarily that George Lucas is an alien, but maybe he had a drunken conversation with someone at a bar that gave him some good ideas for Star Wars, right? So Mork and Mindy is a really old TV show basically about an alien who arrived to Earth in basically an egg spacecraft. can't make this shit up. You can't fucking make this shit up, guys. Yeah. So this is a really, really old 70s TV show. I briefly remember this as a kid. Yep. And he's an alien. And he arrived to the planet in an egg spacecraft. You know, it's weird how, like, Star Trek, a lot of things in Star Trek is kind of like people drew these weird comparisons with sci-fi and how it just kind of comes to pass with just stuff that happens in real life. How the, what are they called? Translocators. The communication devices basically are cell phones in Star Trek, right? The flip phones. Like, literally a communication device that we basically, well, we've passed flip phones at this point, but, well, now we're on to the tablets, which also were in Star Trek, right? Yeah. Fucking crazy. It's weird. Absolutely weird how this shit goes, and you could draw your own conclusions here on, it kind of feels like they've introduced some ideas into our own media, but tinfoil hat, once again, coincidences. Either way, we'll take a peek at this tomorrow, guys, and see exactly what's going on here. Who knows? But we're going to call things here for this evening, guys. Short stream as always, but felt as though this was worth covering over playing video games tonight. And hopefully I can fix my sleep schedule as well as deal with some work stuff and get things retooled so I can stream to you guys for longer. But yeah, tonight or tomorrow, guys, we're going to cover, maybe that's nothing. If it literally looks like just aliens built the pyramids, we aren't going to cover it. But if it's actually something meaningful, I'll take time to watch it with you guys, but we'll see where it goes. So I'm out here for this evening, guys. If you're new to the stream and you enjoyed the bullshit, enjoyed the fun, you enjoyed watching me talk about tinfoil hat shit, make sure you hit the follow button on your select platform. I stream to Kick, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Trovo, as well as TikTok every day from late night to early morning, GMT-6. So late night North America time. I usually stream for about 3 to 4 hours, give or take, depends on my life, what's happening, etc., etc., guys. Shorter streams as of right now, but mainly due to work stuff. But yeah. Alrighty, guys. We're out of here for this evening, guys. Thanks for watching my stream as always, and I hope you guys have a wonderfully fantastic Thursday night and Friday morning. Have a good day, guys.